to the Old Pine Road Podcast.
All right.
With that, welcome to Season 2 of the Old Pine Road Podcast, featuring Max and Dave.
Nice to see you again, folks.
Is it? It's wonderful to see you, even though it's just me and Max in an empty room.
Hey.
We like to imagine.
The
We got
core.
vivid imaginations.
I'll drink.
Cheers. We would like to talk about the
Cheers.
elephant in the room. Today, we are drinking our seltzer waters, but you'll notice the branding has changed. I actually don't think technically we probably could get sued for showing these or talking about these brands, but at this
You didn't
point,
see nothing.
any publicity is good. We welcome it.
It's a PR nightmare. We welcome it.
Speaking of that, we have separated from LaCroix.
Severed
as of
ties.
late. It just came down to
More bubbles per capita.
yeah, honestly, more bubbles per your buck.
Yeah.
Buck per bubble.
Bubs for bucks.
When it comes to seltzer, it really does come down to just the maximum. You know, you don't have much flavor to operate off of.
Some people call it a ghost soda.
Yes, it's kind of
It's like drinking TV static.
Oh yeah, so LaCroix and the Old Pine Road Band have temporarily parted ways until they respond to our letters.
That gradually get angrier and angrier.
That's it. Basically evolved.
And more helpless.
They've evolved to demands at this point. Pretty useless, futile ones.
Desperate demands.
But yeah, so we're still seltzer men, but we've changed.
Seltzer men through and through.
Is your chair locked in?
Yeah.
Do we got that locked in?
It's locked.
Okay, good.
I got a little bit of a leash, but not much.
So we're learning slowly but surely.
Yeah.
You give us too much space and we abuse it.
I can't help it. I just rock naturally.
It's better to roll than to rock.
Why rock when you can roll?
Oh, we'll be here all afternoon, folks. Frantically
Maybe even
fishing
longer.
for content.
Hey, that's got a nice ring to it.
Frantically fishing for content.
We do have Thanksgiving coming around the corner.
It is coming up. Spanksgiving is almost here.
What are you doing?
My sister's having a little luncheon, and then I think maybe going up to Emily's parents for dinner.
Oh, okay.
Just eating. Eat. I love me some Thanksgiving.
What's your favorite Thanksgiving dish?
Ooh, great question, Max.
Thank you.
Oh, Maxy questions. I'm a sweet tooth guy. I'm a sweets guy.
So on the cranberry.
I'm a sucker. I like cranberry. I like cranberry, but I really like it specifically during Thanksgiving. It's not like something I seek out the rest of the year. But what I really, and I hope I don't get too much judgment. I hope this isn't too much controversial. But I'm a pumpkin guy. I'm a pumpkin spice guy. And
Nothing
so
wrong
like
with that.
you get this man here some pumpkin pie, or if you want to go a little further and really push it, pumpkin pie cheesecake.
Oh, all right.
And my mouth started. Well, I said pumpkin pie cheesecake, and my mouth started just salivating.
Yeah, that's a delicacy. Mine did too, a little bit.
A little bit. I love me some pumpkin pie. And you can't go wrong with all the everything else stuffing.
I like the stuffing.
Who doesn't
the
love
turkey,
a
the
good
mashed
stuffing?
potatoes. That's the trifecta for me.
That's
a little bit of gravy.
Oh my gosh!
Come on.
Yeah. My neighbor invited me out for a little cookout he does with his hunting buddy out at his shack.
Okay.
And it's cool. His shack is in the middle of just nowhere, so I dropped Cadence off at basketball practice, and then I had to go out there, and it's literally down an old railroad grade through a swamp in the woods.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mercury Mater, huh?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's just like
yeah.
pitch black, and I'm just creeping down this the railroad grade, and I get to his shack out there, and him and his buddy have prepared like a full like a 4-course meal. It was turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, cranberry, corn. You got to have corn in there.
Yeah.
But just a Thanksgiving meal with all the fixins, and then his wife Linnea made these brownie chocolate chip cookie things that
Some
were
kind
at
of
the bar.
good.
Yeah, like
Some
a brownie
kind of good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But I gorged myself here, and they're like, you know, I hope you bring your appetite. Like I'm gonna bring 2 or 3 appetites, buddy. I don't skimp on that. So
Well, you got a little pre-Thanksgiving warm up.
it was wonderful. It was so good. It was just like one of the best like home cooked meals I've ever had. And just in a swamp in the woods. It was awesome. It was a wonderful time. Thanks for that, Larry.
Sounds like a hell of a time.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So yeah. What's your favorite Thanksgiving dish there, Maxie?
I like the savories. I go for the turkey. I go for the stuffing. I go for the
guy.
taters.
You like a particularly prepared turkey? You got like a preference at this point? You got a preference for your particularly prepared turkey?
My preference for particularly prepared turkeys would be... I like a good old-fashioned roasted turkey, of course.
Old-fashioned roasted
but I mean,
turkey.
Stick one in the Nesco, and
I was gonna say, have you had a deep fried turkey?
I haven't.
Oh my
Have you?
God! You know, we used to go to church with a guy who that was his claim to fame. You know, during Thanksgiving, people would pay him to
Isn't
come.
that dangerous?
It is very. You have to like.
You gotta be a deep fried turkey master.
You gotta know how to do it, and then you gotta do it in the right space. I imagine that's gotta be a good mix. Because it seems like that's.
You gotta have a wide berth. You're doing it outside.
Turkeys claim,
you're not doing
turkeys
it
claim
inside.
more houses than cigarettes at this point. They took smoking outside. They brought the turkeys in.
Welcome to 24. It's topsy-turvy.
But yeah, that's a good deep fried turkey. I go ham for.
Ape shit.
Turkey for.
See what you did there. You'll gobble it up, won't you?
Yeah. I'm sorry for everybody listening. You know, a lot of people have mentioned that, you know, when they sit and listen to this podcast, it's like they're just sitting and hanging with us, and that there's not much more to it than that. And I'm starting to really grasp that. Yeah.
Folks, you'll be all right. You're not losing brain cells.
Nah, well. Yeah.
If we tell them they are.
I wouldn't mislead them either. It's something to do.
What's a podcast with a little?
It's something to do. We should mention, too, while we're at it, our inspiration for starting season 2. Carly went ahead and started her own podcast. Everybody make sure you give a subscribe and a listen. She mentioned that we had inspired her to start a podcast, and that inspired us to
It's a whirlwind of inspiration, if you will.
Did you say a whirlwind?
Whirl.
I thought you added a D in there.
Maybe I will next time, just for you.
Yeah, you know, that is how we're all just trying to...
We're all just trying to live in this world. Wind.
Those were always my favorite instruments in school, the whirlwinds.
Whirlwinds.
The pan flute. Yeah. So shout out to Carly, Heather. Really miss them.
Me too.
Can't wait till the bus brings them back this way. I was talking to them earlier about some fun little shindigs for next summer. So,
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. It's gonna be some cool Old Pine
collabs.
Road, Carly Davidson crossover action,
Good.
and maybe a podcast crossover,
That'd be cool. We should.
a pod crossover. Cast.
Pod crosscast. Crosscasting.
We're going to stop butchering the English language here and bring us to the subject that we're here to talk about today. And that is...
Which is?
Old Pine Road Band's first album, Laying Roots. We kind of talked about the background of the band in the very first episode of the show. We talked about how things started, the history, yada, yada. Loosely touched on the album and some of the ideas, concepts, and how it came to be. But this one we thought, you know, we'd kind of go song for song and actually break down some of the writing process and ideas. I wrote everything on the first album. Max came in, he jammed along on some tunes. And you also, did you write Hemlock? You helped write Hemlocks too. We wrote it together. We did. That was, we wrote it for, we'll get into it. But that's what we're here to talk about in the process and everything,
Amen.
the history behind it. So again, if you're here for, you know, witty commentary on things happening in, you know, the rest of the world or all that other stuff, you can get that, you know, literally everywhere else. We're going to talk about our...
Ourselves.
You know, sometimes the world gets a little too big. You got to shrink it down a little
It's a
bit.
unique experience.
I'm going to make
Maybe.
sure here. Camera's still rolling. Holy
Beautiful.
cow.
Beautiful.
We're firing. We are just firing on all cylinders today.
It's a good Saturday.
Home runs.
Home runs.
Old Pine Road Band, Laying Roots, was our first album. I talked again a lot about like where I was at musically and what I was kind of doing. Old Pine Road Band, how it came to be. And I had hit a point where like, I think things were kind of going like good. You know, when you first start like selling music essentially, like actually getting out there and doing it, I think everybody kind of has a little bit of an internal struggle that like we want to play what it is that we like and what we enjoy. And, you know, music starting off is a very kind of like just a little self-enclosed experience. You're doing it for yourself and the things you want to learn and explore. And then when it comes time to like put these things out there, you're going to find that not everybody likes or enjoys or that's necessarily what they're there for. You know, every audience is different and their reason for being there and listening to music is different. And we know that because there's just a whole spectrum of music out there. You got bands that are, you know, the Beatles reborn, that are just Beatles cover bands. There are bands that are, you know, redoing, you know, there's every spectrum of bands. So I definitely say starting off, like, you know, I wanted to make sure that we could eat, you know? And so a lot of my effort was into being like just a cover band and getting like a set built that people wanted to enjoy, dance along to. And I spent years kind of building and honing that. And it got to a point, or it's still at that point where like, you know, we've got a pretty healthy set of covers and material and stuff that we can pull from.
But also a pretty healthy well of originals.
Yeah, well, I mean, so that's where it was at. It got to the point where, okay, we're doing good. And then what happened was my tonsillectomy. In 2017, it must have been, I got a really bad sore throat. And it just kind of kept getting worse throughout the week to the point that it swelled up. My whole, like, I couldn't breathe through my throat. My sinuses were just in constant, I mean, my whole neck was swelled up. It was so painful. And I didn't have insurance or anything at the time. And I ended up going to the hospital, and they told me that, like, my tonsils were so infected that it was about to close off my airway.
Yeah.
They wanted to airlift me out of Rhinelander up to Woodruff. And
that would have been expensive.
I was uninsured.
Yeah.
Like, thinking about that, I was like, no, I will have somebody drive me. And so I did. I had to sign a sheet from the hospital because they said, like, you're literally on the verge of like dying from your infection, your throat infection.
Wow.
And we want to airlift you, and you're refusing that. So I had to sign paperwork saying that, like, you know, I was ignoring or disagreeing or whatever it was, and putting like just a, you know, a liability
was it just
thing
like
for
the
them.
worst sore throat you've ever had in your life?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, like I said, the night before I went in, I ended up going to my mom's. Like, I was living on my own then, and it got so bad, I was like, I don't want to be alone if something happens. So I went to my mom's, and I'm just putting off going to the hospital because, again, I'm uninsured. I don't want to. Anyways, yeah, the last night at my mom's, I was like, yeah, I have to. It was to the point I couldn't breathe. I hadn't eaten for like a week. You know, I couldn't swallow food. Yeah, every single aspect, whole throat and sinus infection. So, anyways, I get up to Woodruff. I'm freaking out because, like, I'm a singer, and they're talking about removing my tonsils as an adult, which is going to change my throat and everything that I, you know, live on. My doctor, the ENT that they had, she was an Asian lady. Her name was Dr. Min. She was really nice, but I just remember, like, pleading with her, like, you know, please, whatever we got to do to, like, I have to be able to, like, sing, or otherwise I have to change my career, like, you know. Anyways, she was really, really thoughtful and kind. She tried to do everything she could. First, they tried to, like, lance the infection, like basically cut it open and just see what was going on. Yeah. And this is gross. A disclaimer, anybody listen, if you don't like squeamish, gross stuff. Anyways, when she lanced the infection, she said that it was so bad and there was so much like pus basically that there was no way that she could just lance it.
Nothing to stick it on.
Yeah. They opened it up basically, and it was just so bad. You know, I was out for that. So she's like, after that surgery or whatever, and I woke up and came to, she's like, hey, it was unsuccessful. We have to remove them. So like I met with the anesthesiologist, and again, everybody, I'm just like freaking out, like, please, like, because it does. You read about them, and they can change your voice. They can change. They do change your voice, and my voice did change after that. If you go and listen to stuff before, I got a lower range out of it. So for people afraid of it, it did end up working out for me. But they had to use a special breathing tube when they put me under, because the bigger breather tubes can damage your vocal cords. So the anesthesiologist was very mindful. He went and researched, putting singers under and what they should do. So he used a smaller breathing tube.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were they were really thoughtful. My hats off to them.
Yeah, that's.
So they did. They went in the next day. Then after that first day, they went in the next day, put me under again, and gave me a full tonsillectomy. I was out for, I don't remember how long. I don't remember waking up. But after, I had already been in the hospital, I think like 4 days, when I finally started to come to, and I still had to stay a couple of days. And so I had, 3 or 4 just semi-lucid days in the hospital. And that was where I had the bug in my ass finally come up that, like, if I get out of here and I can still make music, I need to, like, record something.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it was, like, the biggest wake-up call that, like, I had been kind of, like, writing and making music, but I hadn't bothered to record any of it, put it down, do anything with it. And now, here I am laying in a bed, not sure I'm ever going to be able to sing again. And how sick that made me feel, that, like, that was all going to just be gone or go away with me.
That's pretty impactful.
While I was in that hospital bed, I can remember looking out the window, and my view was of, what's that parking lot? Kind of by the movie theater in Woodruff, if you know where the movie theater is. There's like a little hut that's got some advertisement for like a karate thing there.
Yeah, there's like
that view was my view for like a week or so while I was in the hospital recovering, and every day I was looking out there, and I was just thinking about this. I was thinking about laying roots. And
had you had any of those songs written?
Some of them, yeah.
Which ones?
Vagabond.
Okay.
Vagabond I had wrote. Paper Hands, I think, was the first song. Paper Hands might have been the first song I ever wrote, and I was like, oh, I'd like to record this someday. I wrote a lot of songs before then that were just kind of like, me practicing and playing, and Paper Hands, I was like, oh, this is cool. I want to record it. So Paper Hands, Vagabond, those might have been the only 2 that were wrote before that incident.
Okay.
Before the tonsillectomy. So, long story short, I was in the hospital then for a week or so. They let me out, and then I was at my mom's house for a month.
Oh, really?
And when I left, my doctor told me, she gave me a script of prednisone and Percocet. And she said, don't miss a single dose. You set a timer, you wake up, even like you use it like every single day. Like usually with that stuff, they're like very like, be careful or cautious. She was like, don't mess around with it. Like use the whole script. Like it's going to be very painful if you forget and just, come to without it, which happened a couple of times. And it was like, throat pain's pretty terrible.
So were you gigging a lot before that?
Yeah, so I actually, the week it happened, I was scheduled to do music in the park.
Oh, really?
Yeah, literally, like, I went into the
17?
hospital. Yeah, yep. I had already done it once or twice. Like, yeah, I was already relatively established, like, with that stuff. And, so then I was at my mom's for a month, and then I spent another 2 months not gigging. I probably spent 2 months barely talking, just getting starting to it. And then that 3rd month I started practicing, trying to sing, and it was different. Like I could talk and stuff, but I'd lost any muscle I had developed up to that point. Number one.
Makes sense.
Your diaphragm, any control I had, it was all lost. And then my voice changed. Like literally, like there's more space now in the back of my throat. So like, every sound I made sounded different and changed. But I started figuring it out. And I remember my first gig was 3 months, I think, after my surgery.
How was it?
It was bad. It was a different show. I had to some songs I had to drop an octave. I also didn't want to hurt myself. The thing about a tonsillectomy is if you irritate or open up one of those cuts from the surgery, like, you know, where she opened up you in the back,
Yeah.
what'll happen with a lot of those is they'll do a slow bleed.
Ooh.
They'll bleed and they won't stop, and people like bleed out from there. So I had to be very mindful not to irritate my throat. You know, I used a lot of grit in my voice. I had to get rid of that for a long time because I didn't want to it, or I just didn't have it when I got back to it. But yeah, that was like a super crazy experience. And I went through it. So August 2017, I think, was when I went into the hospital. I think 2 or 3 weeks before I had gone into the hospital, maybe not even 2 or 3 weeks, I had finalized my divorce.
Oh.
So I got divorced, got really sick, and then spent a month in the hospital and 3 months, like, barely doing anything. It was a really
trying
mentally time. It was a very, it was a wild experience. But I mean, some good came out of it, like the tonsillectomy. I quit smoking after that. Like, I got out of the hospital and I was like, you know, and at the point I went in, I was a pack-a-day smoker. So,
okay, I wasn't really sure of the whole timeline.
Yeah, that was like the catalyst. Like, I got out of the hospital after not being able to like breathe or talk or anything. Like, I went home after like a month. You know, I went back to my apartment, and when I went back there, I was like, okay, just don't touch it. You haven't touched it for this long.
After a month, I mean, might as well just
after
keep
this
it
long,
rolling.
just keep it going as long as you can. And but yeah, very, you know. So then also quitting smoking at the same time, I lost. I think I lost probably 60 pounds.
Oh, just from not eating and stuff?
From the end of the, probably, I mean, I started losing weight after the divorce and stuff, like, because you're, you know, going through that. But then, yes, basically when I was able to start eating, the only thing I could eat was mashed potatoes. It was like mashed potatoes and yogurt, and that was it. And yogurt.
At least you can mix them.
Well, yogurt with my dairy stuff too, and that was yeah.
I was joking about that.
You shouldn't, but you can.
I just needed to slip one in. It was getting really serious.
Yeah, you know what? We are getting kind of dark.
Hey, we're not. It is really good hearing about this stuff, though, man.
I mean, so the whole point is I'm trying to give everybody a little bit of perspective for where the idea from Laying Roots came out of it. I was at a really dark, really low time. I didn't know what I was. I had all these things these ideas that I wanted to do, and now I don't even know if I'm going to be able to. Like, that's how I felt. I felt like I had dragged my feet and wasted so much time and potential that after I finally started to feel better, started to get back into gigging, it was like, okay,
I had another chance.
I had a fire under my ass. Yeah. And that fire under my ass is where this came from. So literally after I got out of the hospital, I started reading about the recording process and stuff, like, again, while I was sitting, you know, laid up, not doing anything. Mm-hmm. And I had no clue whatsoever. Still have a very limited perspective.
Learning.
But didn't go to school for it. Never had a lot of money to invest in the process or anything. So it was always what I could do. And that's where it started. So I got my computer, which we're still using to this day, the one that we're recording this podcast on. I got some software and some basic mics and equipment, and started to write and lay down tracks. And the first song that I started to record was Paper Hands, which is actually the last song on the album. And probably the song that I think is the most different from the rest of the album.
It's got that funk quality.
Yeah, well, it's got horns in it. Buck Kipper played sax. We'll talk about that. But that was the first one I started to record. The second one was When All Is Said and Done, which is the first song on the track. So I guess that's where we'll start. We're on track 1 here. When all is said and done. When all is said and done. That song, again, where I was, it was right after my divorce, right after the throat surgery. It was a very dark time. And, you know, when you hit those times, you kind of respond one of two ways. You know, let yourself sink down, or you choose to kind of disregard all the negativity and the, you know, crummy stuff, and almost like will yourself into this state of optimistic delusional optimism,
a sort of a rebirth.
yeah you have to choose, and I think I've gone through enough things in life where I've learned, like, you know,
It's definitely easier that way than the other way.
Well, it's so easy. Like, life gives you so many reasons or opportunities to just kind of give up or to lay off the gas or, fall apart. And you'll do it. And I've done it many times and will do it again and continue to.
It's part of learning.
For sure. But also, I think part of learning is that, like, that
you don't have to crumble.
Yeah, because again, there is so many things and there is so many opportunities that, like, if you do want to enjoy the time you have here, you really have to choose to focus on those things. You have to choose to seek those things out. You have to choose to perpetuate it. You have to choose, and so it is maybe foolish optimism or hopefulness or whatever in some ways. But it's better than the alternative.
I'd rather be a foolish optimist than some kind of a pessimist.
Brilliant pessimist. Hey, we got needs for both of them, and you'll go through moments where you're there or that, but that's where I was when the ideas came out, and when all is said and done, specifically, if you go into the lyrical content a little bit about it, a lot of it's about just where I was feeling about, like, my ex-wife. Like, it's been a long 5 years. We were together for like 3, but like it was about a 5-year period that all of those events kind of took place.
Okay.
And just kind of like just being blasted through those 5 years and coming out on the other side, and like everything that I had worked for or built or thought my life was going to be had suddenly just kind of been swept out. The whole rug had been swept out. There goes my marriage. There goes my voice. There goes everything.
Started over.
But the lyrics circle back to that, like, optimism, like the chorus, maybe someday I will see you again. When your years have had your way and your hair begins to gray, maybe someday I could be your everything. Heaven only knows what tomorrow could bring. And that was where, like, I had to, like, I know where I'm at today, and I know it sucks, and I know it's not fun, but I have to choose to, like, look for tomorrow. And maybe tomorrow will be different. And maybe all these things that, like, seem broken and destroyed now, who knows where they're going to be in the future and where I'm going to be in the future. And that's what that whole song was about, was choosing to, like, focus on the hope and the optimism, even if it was delusional, even if none of those things ever happened, because it's better than wallowing in the loss that, that whole experience was. So
I would agree.
That's where When All Is Said and Done is from, and kind of what it's about. Like, I definitely like to keep songs open to interpretation too, because there's plenty of things in there that are about different things, and
everybody draws different connections that mean something to them.
So as I talk about this stuff, I hope if you're listening, you're not, it's totally warping your view of the song or anything. It's not meant to. It's just meant to give you, I think, some insight into our creative process, which is a very novice and new idea, and something. So it's also letting us vocalize where these things come from, and maybe that'll make the next things better or worse. Who knows?
Only time will tell.
We gotta be
ladies and gentlemen.
Hopeful optimists, delusional optimists. Anyways, the second song on the album.
Wait, let's talk about the instrumentalization a little bit.
The instrumentalization on When All Is Said and Done?
Yeah.
Oh,
everything.
That's right, I did. Okay, so yeah, thanks, Max. Good job.
Yeah.
Light high five.
Bye.
The instrumental, the music was written around mandolin.
Oh.
I didn't play mandolin.
Kind
to a mandolin.
Fiddling away in the music store?
Yeah, fiddling away, picking in the music store, and I wrote that lick, and that's where everything else for the song evolved out of. Lyrically, again, it was all about, trying to be optimistic during a not fun time, and playing the different instruments. So I had my Breedlove, I had my guitar. Barry, actually, from the Pea Patch, his dad was a big time picker and played for years and had a big accumulation of instruments. And at one point, he started to give Barry some of these instruments that he just had stored away. So Barry started to get all these guitars, and that's actually how we met. He started to get all these guitars, and he hadn't learned how to play guitar at that point.
Okay.
So he reached out to the music store. I was the guitar teacher at the time, and
before you even
so that's how I met Barry. That is how I met Barry.
Cool.
I started teaching him guitar, and one of the instruments that his dad ended up giving to him was a bass. This bass actually right over here.
That bad boy right there.
Yeah, it's I think it's a jazz bass, Fender jazz bass. It's nice. It's still got the sticker on the front of it, like sweet, very, very sweet gift. So he gave that to me right when I started recording. So all the bass on the first album was played on that. I found a mandolin. I got one off a musician's friend for $50.
That's a steal.
Got my brother one too. Yeah.
Oh, really?
That's the mandolin on the first album, a $50 mandolin. And then the banjo actually isn't here. The banjo that's on the first album, because that's also in there. That was my buddy Pan John from Eagle Lanes. It was his dad's banjo that his dad, I think had passed away or something, and he had just laying around, and I told him I was working on it. He's like, well, do you want some banjo on it? And I was like, sure.
Yeah, nice,
so he hooked me up with that, and
a lot of inherited instruments.
Just people's dads or stuff laying around, and then it gave me the opportunity to learn about those instruments.
Right.
That was another great thing about the music store, was sitting around. You've got all these instruments just chilling, and we had a lot of downtime. So every time I had a minute, I'd go pluck at something I didn't understand and get a little bit better understanding of it. So yeah, that's where, when all is said and done, that was like the first one that I had wrote. And that song was more, again, like that's where you definitely hear the bluegrass start to come in. Like Paper Hands didn't have a bluegrass vibe. It almost had like again, more of a funk, kind of laid back Citizen Cope type, vibe to it. Where when all is said and done, had more of the bluegrass and folk that I think became a little more indicative of the sound as it moved on. The percussion on it is all done by Thor Gunderson. Thor had been playing with me for a while. I don't think... Yeah, so my tonsillectomy happened in 2017. And I think I had a different drummer. I think that's when I had Scott. I think Scott was drumming with me at that point. And then that New Year's, or the following New Year's, must have been when Thor came in and filled in for Scott, and then he was the drummer for a year or two after that. So yeah, he must have been almost a year or so after. I started that process at the end of 2017, going to the beginning of 2018.
Yeah.
And then throughout 2018-19 was when, because I think it came out in 2020 or 21. Did it come out even later? I don't know. I mean, I've been working. It sat for a long time.
I think it came out in 22.
That's wild. It sat for a long time.
It did.
But I mean, it was because...
Had to be 22.
Yeah, learning about the process, recording it all over the place. Yeah, so that's like the percussion parts. Basically, I had almost all the songs kind of built and recorded, and then we'd take that track, I'd boil that down. We'd go to Thor's house or Sean, Sarah's dad, Sean Burgess, Copper Art Studio. We'd go to his, we did a session in his garage one time. Yeah, we cleared out his garage, and we set up like a wall of blankets in there, and then we set up Thor's kit in the middle. We did a day of recording with that, a day of recording at Thor and Katie's. Yeah, the percussion was just kind of recorded at different times and different places when we could do the stuff. And that was just that. It's all a process. Like for everything you like, it's to play the instrument and write a song is one thing. To make sure that your mic, your gain staging is good, that you're run to a mixer, you've got your levels on there good, the EQ settings, all of this before you even get to mastering and putting it. Like, there's such a process to just make sure something comes from your instrument into those ears. Yeah. It sounds right. And it's still a process that we're very new at and learning. And yeah, when I first started, it was it was really rough and all over the place. I had to redo a lot of stuff, and I think it ended up working out in the end.
That's how you learn.
Yeah. Did reach a point where I was just like, okay, need to release it, get it out. But
time to move on.
Yeah. Any other questions about when all is said and done?
No.
No? You guys at home, any questions? No? Is that camera still rolling? Could you check that?
I can. We got juice.
Sure, sweet.
I didn't know at first because you're all frozen.
I'm frozen. I hope, like I said, we did have a little bit of a hiccup with our recording stuff here, so I'm going to have to piece that together, and I hope it's not too
Hopefully no one left us.
disjointed. It'll work out. The next song...
Hemlocks.
Hemlocks is the next song on the album. Hemlocks actually was the very first song that I wrote in here. I wrote that at this house. All the other stuff I had wrote at the old apartment. Everything I recorded on the first album basically was recorded in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I had half the living room set up as my little recording area. It was very, very clustered.
Down home.
Yeah, and the writing process, again, paper hands, I wrote probably in 2011, 2012.
That's
almost
oldie.
10 years before it finally ended up, coming out. So it was a long process. Hemlocks was the very first song that I wrote here, though. I think it was during Christmas time. I came back from a trip. I had played down in Illinois. I had done my first show down in Illinois for a car dealership. They hired me for their Christmas party. So went all the way down to Illinois, spent the 2 nights in a hotel room, came back up, and the idea for Hemlocks had come in. And Hemlocks is just, again, that kind of maybe just idealizing those little nature getaways. Those moments where you can get out and just actually kind of be free from all the, I'm one of those people, like, I've got to really, I ruminate a lot. Like, I get into those thought loops, and I really like to just chew on something until it's, mashed down. And so those times where you can get away and just kind of, like, escape, like, for me, like, that's the closest thing I think I can get to, like, recapturing childhood in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, that just kind of being free of the world and free of the stuff going on in it. And that's what Hemlocks is, just like that, idealizing one of those moments, and just wishing it would last a little longer. Can't last forever. Nothing lasts forever. And if you spend too much time idealizing, you'll lose touch. You got to balance the delusion with reality. You can't be full delusion. You can't be full reality. It's a mix.
Use your delusion.
Use your delusion wisely. So that's Hemlocks. We played that song for, what was it? Up North at 4. We were on WJFW or something like that.
No, that wasn't the song we did. We did,
Did I do Hemlocks solo? Maybe that's what I
Oh,
did.
yeah, you did. Okay.
Okay.
Yep, I remember that now.
Sure,
That's how it
sure.
went.
And
Yep.
then you played with me when we did that.
The devil ain't known for sympathy.
The devil ain't known for sympathy. Good call. That's that's right.
Or whatever it's called.
Whatever it's called. Hemlocks, we recorded it here. It's just guitar and mandolin in our my vocals. I don't even think
Just
we
you.
did use.
It's just you.
You did contribute vocals to When All Said and Done. Hey! That's you. That's Max.
Uncredited, by the way.
No, you're credited on there, I think.
Let's check. Max Wyrock, mandolin.
Doesn't say vocals? Whoa. I wonder if that was a slight.
Hey!
What did that? I bet the hay showed up really loud on there.
I made sure to do mine a little tamer.
So
That might be the only singing I do on the album, though. So, I mean, I don't really need any credit.
That's okay.
That's fine.
We did, when I recorded Hemlocks, we recorded it with just me and you. When we play it live, it's very different. There's a lot more to it. Paul adds a lot. There's a lot more vocals. So that was a song that when we did record and release it, I have always kept in the back of my head that I would like to re-record and re-release it with the full band and maybe even some percussion.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
So that was one that I did think about coming back to. The next song on the album, Summer Sun. So here's a little fun if you guys are still listening. If you want to do a little scavenger hunt, I think it's still there, but on my Facebook, I wrote Summer Sun. It must have been back in 2018, 2017, sometime after the divorce.
Okay.
And I had my friend at the time record a video of me playing it and singing it. It's very different from how we ended up releasing the recording.
I think you showed it to me one time.
Yeah. Well, if you go listen to that video too, it was not too long after my throat surgery. It was like one of the first things that I like recorded and put out there after I had that. So if you go listen to it, it sounds very different and my voice is very different, which I think is interesting. I might have also taken it down. I don't know. Sometimes they take those old videos down.
Yeah, go look for it, guys.
You learn someday that, you don't need to put that all out there.
True.
But yeah, I did at one point, and so there's a version of Summer Sun out there that is the original version of me playing it and singing it, and it sounds very different from what we ended up recording. I wrote that song. The Porcupine Mountains does this artist in residency program that I didn't do, but I very much wanted to do it. It was kind of on a list, and like part of the contingency of doing it, the way the program worked is they basically have this cabin in the woods. You go out there as an artist, so a musician, painter, sketcher, whatever you're going to be doing, and you create a work of art that is inspired by or, influenced by the Porcupine Mountains.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and you basically get to go stay there, I think, for free for like a week or however much time you're set for.
Okay.
And you create that work, and that's kind of, they're basically exchanging artworks for
the stay.
Yeah, for the stay.
That sounds awesome.
Something I'd still love to do at some point.
Amazing.
But that's where my mind started with that, was like, a song about nature. And so that's like, it was literally about kind of like state parks or national, like these really little pretty areas that like we have all these really like maybe intense memories of, like every time I go to Lake of the Clouds, I'm thinking of like, going there with my grandparents when they were, still alive. I'm thinking about my family when we were still, that unit that it was when we were younger.
Right.
It's like a little, you do a little bit of time traveling in a sense when you go back to some of those places. And then your family goes on, and another generation of families has their own memories there. And there have been so many generations of families that have these, intense, tangible memories to these areas. And, they're just these silent monoliths that are a part of us.
Yeah.
And will be, as long as we take care of them.
That's beautiful.
Forever. So that's like the chorus of Summer Sun. Though many souls have been here before me, she's been the muse in all of their stories. It's like
the nature itself.
Well, it's talking about like all the Hemingway and like all the authors and that wrote about these places, and not Hemingway. Who's the I'm blanking on his name, but there's been plenty of where nature and these places have been.
Well, Hemingway writes about nature, so it makes sense.
Yeah, he's not the one. It's not Longfellow, but anyways.
John Muir.
Sure, let's run with it. Aldo Leopold. That's all of those people. Like anybody that has created art that's inspired by, nature and the outdoors. Though many souls have been here before me, spend the muse in all their stories, like the muse you search for but never find. Someday when I meet my end, she'll take in a new generation, and the songbirds will sing their songs. I was just talking about that, like
the circle.
Yeah, and the permanence of those things, and how temporary we are. But it is also wild how much we, can influence that in that place. Like, even though our lives are so temporary and short, like the impact that we have on that versus the impact it has on us, like it's an interesting dynamic. And that's just kind of what that song is exploring.
Cool.
A little bit.
I like that.
But yeah, if you can find the original version, it's very different. I don't know if it's good, but it's different. Anyways, fourth song on the album,
Ooh.
Reminder. At that time, when I wrote that, I was dating Sarah, and part of like gigging, like you're gone all the time. You know, everybody does everything on the weekends. Every family get together, family reunion, birthday party, you name it. Every event happens on the weekends. And that's where our bread and butter is, right? Like playing for these events and these people that are out there. And for that, we've basically given up like our weekends and those experiences to some degree. And that's really rough on relationships. It's destroyed plenty for me, if not been just a constant thing to grapple with or deal with, you know. You know, it's wild for how much time we spend out and about there. Like we're still working in a sense, you know. It's not the same, you know. We're still providing something, and there's an exchange of, you know. So for me, there's an obligation to provide a service that, you know,
Up to a certain standard.
yeah, so it's just not the same, you know, thing as being able to just have a weekend off and hang out with your buddies somewhere. And when we do have our time off, everybody else is working. So it's like we get to hang with other musicians or
just by ourselves.
Or we spend a lot of time by ourselves. But again, it definitely puts strains on relationships.
I find that if you just don't have any relationships, it's
ideal. Just have no personal relationship. I mean, there's some mentalities.
I'm
like
just
that,
I'm just joshing.
But that is where a reminder came from. The traveling, the constantly being like, you know, out and about or on the move. It was kind of just meant to be like, you know, still love you, still care about you. It's a reminder that like I do still care, because I do care about the people in my life and love them deeply. But it is a unique career choice, right? Musician, I think, is a unique position anywhere, and then put you up in the middle of the North Woods. And good luck, you know. And it's a awesome time, but that's definitely one of those prices that I think we pay is the, you know, and that's changing, like, you know, too. Like now we're getting to the point too where we've had some weekends off now, and you get it, but
yeah.
But you definitely give up
I'm
a lot.
sick of those
changes.
weekends off.
God, just having that time off to enjoy my family and friends has been just a nightmare. No, that was we got to have a nice dinner. That was the first time that you just like got to have like Max made Wiener Schnitzel. Jenna was a wonderful host. That was thank you for having us. And Wiener Schnitzel, and what was Spetzel? Spetzel. I didn't try that, but the Wiener Schnitzel was. I gorged myself. Like, that was phenomenal. Next level. Like,
we gotta make that again.
Yeah, you nailed it. The deep fry and everything. But yeah, that was wonderful to just be able to do that. Last weekend, kiddo had a basketball tournament in Marshfield. Last weekend was fun.
How'd it go?
I watched the Paul Tyson fight Friday, which that sucked. But then kiddo had a basketball tournament Saturday, went undefeated.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
And then I got to go watch the Stipe John Jones fight after that.
What's that?
That John Jones is like the greatest UFC fighter of
on
all
TV.
time. Yeah, so they had a pay-per-view fight Saturday night. It was Tyson Paul Friday, Stipe Jones Saturday, which it was a good fight too.
Fight weekend in America, huh?
Yeah, well, and then Sunday the Packers won one of the most wild like nail biter.
They win by a point.
Yeah, should not have won. Got very dumb luck. Like, yeah, it was kind of a rough game. A lot of it to me seemed like they just underestimated the Bears. The Bears just fired their offensive coordinator. They should be a mess, but Caleb Williams decided that, you know, he's just the fastest guy alive, put up like 70 rushing yards on us. So, and when a quarterback can move, that makes defense a lot harder. And yeah, it just seemed like the Packers underestimated. But either way, we got the win. A win's a win. We got it.
Here.
Walked away with it.
Here.
So that was a fun weekend. A lot of sports and stuff. So we get these in between seasons. We get a little bit of time. When we don't have those times, that's what I wrote Reminder for. Like the tie back.
I love it.
It was just a reminder that you know. Still
Say
care.
reminder again.
It's a reminder. Oh, shit. Anyways, the next song is Max's favorite on the album. And it's because it's named after him. It's called Vagabond. I make that
Can't
joke.
spell Max with a Vagabond. Without
It's
Max.
funny. I wrote that song well before I ever met you or
What
anything.
year? Around.
You know, I remember writing that song because I don't know if I was married to her or dating her, but I was with my ex-wife. And I showed her that song. And one of the first lyrics is she's like, this rhyme ain't got no reason. I don't even remember the lyrics right now.
Something linger on.
Yeah, these rhymes ain't got no reason. These tunes linger on. She's the flavor of the season, and I'm the fool she drags around. That line. I just thought it sounded cool.
It does.
It
It's
rhymes
got
and
like
it sounds kind of cool.
It's
and
a catchy.
and the song is about like a vagabond kind of like,
Yeah.
you know.
Did she
But
take offense?
yeah, she did. I remember showing her this song. Like, what do you think about this? And she's like, "That what?" Like she was pissed.
Flavor of the season.
Flavor of the season.
Who's the
What does
flavor of
that
the
mean?
season?
Exactly. So I remember that, and then I was like, "Oh, well, I'm not showing anyone any more songs for a while." But yeah, that I remember. I can't remember what year that was, but I do remember that reaction. And I've changed that song a couple times too, just kind of how I play it and how it ended up coming to be. Yeah, it's a fun one. I think Thor did a killer job on the drum work on that song.
Yeah, I can hear it right now, echoing in my head.
Your soloing on there is pretty awesome. Again, we always made jokes that when we would play or do it, that it was Max's song, just because he gets that.
Well, we changed the lyrics a little bit too to fit my
Which
name.
which lyric was it again?
Like a Max without a home.
Oh yeah, like a man without a home. We changed it to like a Max without a home. You know where that joke is really rooted from is that the time Matt came over here. Our friend Matt came over here.
Gotta talk about
We've
this
probably
again.
talked. Have we talked about it before?
I don't know if we have on here.
It was funny, but at first he thought you were like a doctor or something. Like for some reason,
That kid was all mixed up.
yeah, somebody had implied or for some mentioned that you were a doctor. So at some point he came up to me and was like, "Is he really a doctor?" Like was just like in disbelief that you could be a doctor. And then after that, we went out by the fire to burn some cardboard, and we're burning it. And Matt goes, "Max, does this remind you of home?" Like, just went the total opposite direction. Went from thinking you were a doctor to thinking you were actually homeless.
Took a 180.
Your guys' relationship took a long time to recover. After
Still
that.
hasn't.
That's why I haven't released the episode 7 video yet. The audio doesn't show all the fights.
You get that special edition. You're gonna see some fights.
tension.
You're gonna see some fights, baby.
But that's where the Vagabond came from. I'm trucking. We're almost
Okay.
through it. We're almost
All right.
through.
Do you want to talk about any? No? Okay.
I mean, what else do we want to talk about with Vagabond?
All right. Moving on. What do we got?
And Vagabond is kind of nonsensical if you like go into the verses. And I'm not trying to trash the song, but like I was just like, I was just trying to write something that's
through it.
catchy and like
Yeah.
I was like that's like the lines weren't personal. Like she's the flavor of the season. Like I didn't think of that about like
People
it just
don't always have
sounded
to
cool.
write about exactly what's going on in their own lives.
Yes, exactly.
There's an element.
Some songs, well, and that's going to tie into the next song too. Some songs are very personal and super personal, and some songs are just fun songs that sound cool, and some songs you write from different perspectives.
and
Yeah, it's an exercise, and that's what Vagabond was. But the chorus, every time I listen to the chorus on that song, it doesn't really make sense. You guys break it out. If you've defined a different meaning out of that song, share it with me, and that can be the new meaning for that song. You just
sounds
let me
like
know.
a competition.
I would say so. We're gonna see. All 2 people who listen are gonna be vying. Thanks, Jared and Michelle.
Kookaburra.
Track 6 on Laying Roots, Cheap Cigars. Cheap Cigars had a lot of different names. The first name was actually Blue Ribbon Blues,
Okay.
kind of from the Pabst Blue Ribbon.
I get
It was
it.
named PBR at one point too.
Oh, okay.
But then I was like, I don't want to get sued. So changed it to Cheap
PBR would have
Cigars.
came right after you. Good thing you got that swapped.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I wrote this song about my time. This would have been before Cadence was born, when I was
A derelict from the sounds
a
of
little
it.
bit of a derelict, a little bit. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. So it had like a living room, kitchen, and then you walk through the door and it was a bedroom, bathroom, like combo. So it was
Alright.
2 rooms, but it was 1 bedroom.
Yeah.
But me and my buddy split it. He lived in the living room, I lived in the bedroom, and tight quarters. And that's when I wrote that song about. It was just kind of just going rent to rent. Like every time rent would come along, did I have enough money? Was I going to spend it on rent, or was I going to buy other vices?
Yeah.
It was a time and a half, and that's where Cheap Cigars came from. Just kind of that
Were you-
carefree little
What kind of
period of
cigars
life.
were you smoking?
Cheap ones. I mean, I you know what I started smoking on when I was still in high school was those Swisher Sweet cigarillos.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I would I'd chief on those bad boys. And I remember I got addicted to those. So then when I actually transitioned to cigarettes didn't have enough of a punch, so I'd smoke 2 cigarettes to get the same puff I got from a cigarillo. Yeah. Yeah, and they were my parents' home rolled cigarettes, no less. So they were
They were beefy to
they
begin
were
with.
beefy, yeah. You know, for a while I want to say they were using pipe tobacco in their cigarettes because it was cheaper.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
But it was horrible, horrible cigarettes.
Oh boy.
But yeah, I can very distinctly remember having to smoke 2. I'd go for a walk. My parents like love them, but God, why was I going for walks every night? There's nothing out there.
You know what they call it when you smoke 2 cigarettes at the same time?
What's that?
Babe Ruth in them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
Why?
he used to swing with the 2 bats, you know, when he was warming
Did
up.
he? Okay. That's pretty cool.
I don't know if people actually.
That's a cool little history
I don't know
thing.
if people actually say that, but
I'm
Let's roll with it.
racking my mind right now, trying to think of one person who's ever been like, "Oh, I'm Babe Ruth in it." I don't think I have. I don't. That's an actual thing.
maybe you never will.
I hope not at this point. But yeah, Cheap Cigars is kind of just a fucking have a good time song. Have a good time song.
It is a good time.
Yeah. Some good drum work on that. Chris laid out some sweet harmonica on Cheap Cigars.
Yeah, that's a very nice part.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of that song, instrumentally speaking.
I agree.
It's our shortest song. I think it's
Is it?
I think it's under 2 minutes.
Palatable.
Yeah. Well, and when we play it live, we tend to do a lot more instrumentals. When I
least
was
a little.
recording stuff, I didn't know how to I want to extend this song and add an instrumental. I would for me back then I would have to restart the song and go back and re-record it because like everything I did was like 1 track.
Yeah.
I'd record the guitar the whole way through. I'd record the bass the whole way through, like not even doing sections. So like if I wanted to add a solo after the fact, I would have had to restart the whole process. And yeah, I didn't want to do that. So it's a short song because of that.
Short and sweet.
Home is the Sailor, track 7. That was the only one on the first album that was technically recorded live. Me, Chris, and Thor recorded that live for a River Street session.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And that was the one off the River Street session that I ended up taking that recording. I layered in some guitar. I kept the drums. You added in mandolin after the fact. That was added. And then I think I might have redone the vocals on it. I'm not sure.
I think you might have.
Yeah. But so technically Home is the Sailor was recorded live and is the only one that was
That's cool.
on
little
that first
tidbit.
one. Yeah. Home is a Sailor is a song based on my deep love of Lake Superior and its vast shipwreck history and maritime history. Like that stuff has always absolutely fascinated me. So Home is a Sailor has a lot of nods to some great poetry about Superior and some of my own poetry about Superior and the lake. And just kind of a little sailor's anthem that I wrote based on my own love of the lakes and the water. And that's about it on that one.
Okay. Well,
Paper Hands is the final track. We made it.
Circling back.
Made it. The final track, and also the very first one that I actually started recording. And that was because I had written some other ones. The reason I started with Paper Hands is kind of a simpler song.
Yeah.
It's like a 3-chord.
Get your foot in the door.
Yep. Just something to start with, to start getting a grasp on what is what. God, what did I write Paper Hands about? The first couple of lines I know were kind of about like work. Like at the time, keep your head up, eye straight, do what I say, hear what I tell you, don't you dare look away. You know, it was kind of just like, you keep this up, I'll take you straight to the top. Like, you know, people telling me that if I just kept doing, again, like there was a period in my life where I was working at Menards and I was fully committed. Like I was a new dad, I had a young kid. I was fully committed to being a full-time Menards employee and like climbing the ranks of Menards. And they had just that mentality where if you know, just kind of perpetuate the status quo, you make sure you know, use the people below you to get as much out of them for as little as possible. Like,
and kiss ass to everybody above you.
Yeah, well, and that's what, you know, it's the people that kiss ass and grovel that kind of rise the ranks there. Like the shit rises to the top. Yeah, I got a very firsthand experience of that at a young age. And that was that whole dynamic. And that's what that song was about. Like, just like I'd throw it all away for almost anything else.
Yeah.
Well, did throw it all away.
Good thing you got to.
Like,
Hell yeah.
This ain't worth having.
Sounds like a...
That's not to say I'm not that was just my experience in retail, and that's not every experience at every place.
No, definitely not.
But during that time and that place, it was not fun, and that's where Paper Hands came out of. I had my friend Buck lay down saxophone for that. I also had Brett. You remember Brett Petrick? Our friend Brett and Gene. We went to their house up in Phelps.
Yep.
He actually did the drums initially on that. I had him record the drums. Buck recorded the sax. After I went and like started piecing everything together, though, the drums just didn't mesh with what we had already recorded for the other stuff. So I had Thor re-record them. But I might have still used some of like Brett's hi-hats or something in there. I don't think I took them out entirely. So I think he's layered in there. But then our friend Buck played some saxophone on that, and it was literally, we set up, I think, in Brett and Gene's basement. I set up all my recording equipment, and I was like, well, what should I do? I don't know. Click. Play along to it.
Sounds great.
We did that once or twice, and then that was like the final take. And also had harmonica on there. So like at the end of Paper Hands, there's kind of some dueling harmonica, saxophone, and guitar parts going on at that. So I thought that was fun. I'd love to have Buck come back and have some more saxophone. I love horn parts, which doesn't really mesh with... well, I shouldn't say that. I was about to say it doesn't really mesh with like the bluegrass folk stuff, but that's not true. Look at Carrie Nation and some of those artists. Yeah, so...
Just gotta have the gumption.
You gotta have the gumption in the guys. You gotta have the guys in the gumption. If you ain't got the
guys
guys,
in the gumption.
and you ain't got the gumption, you ain't got...
Good group of guys with gumption.
Nothing. But yeah, that was Laying Roots. That was kind of the history of some of the songs and the reason why I did it. So again, I had that idea of like, oh, I need to get this stuff out there, start recording it. So I started that process in 2017. When did it come out? 2022. So yeah, 5 years. Over the course of 5 years, I started
5 years in the making.
Writing, recording. Does it sound like it took 5 years to make? No. It sounds like it took 5 hours to make. But that's the process. It's funny, like branching out, we did everything within about a year. I think because we started recording in November and we released it in September? So just shy of a year it took us. And we learned a lot with that process. And now the next time we do it, it'll probably take 4 or 5 months.
Maybe.
Yeah. That's just how it is. You're either going to go to school and learn how to do it and save a lot of time, or you got to be willing to just go through it. And that's where Laying Roots was like, I knew it wasn't perfect, especially the initial release. When we first released it, it was all over the place. The levels were all different. I had never released music through a platform. I had no idea what I was doing. And it got to a point where it was like people would just wanted to hear it. And it was like, I'm not going to take this and restart it and like make it up to this like standard now, probably an unattainable standard I'm making for myself, definitely like a semi-perfectionist when it comes to certain things. So it got to a point where I was like, this is good enough. This is good enough.
Because otherwise you would have been tinkering with it.
I would have done it forever.
Till the day you died.
Yep.
The thing. Yeah.
And that's another hard part is like you can always find something to add. So it's like, what's the point where like, okay, this is good. And
we should mention that the album's now remastered.
Sure. So after we released it, put it out there, as we were doing branching out, I really wanted it to be a little more cohesive, like to be able to listen to Laying Roots and not have all these volume discrepancies and sound and quality issues. So we found the audio tracks from that, and as we went through the process of mastering branching out, actually before we went through the process of mastering branching out, we mastered this to try to figure out. Not even remastered. It says remastered on the CD. It's not remastered. It's just mastered. It was never mastered.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So then we did. We got to go through, master it, and then we had it fresh in our heads for branching out. So it is wild how things work out. Like, it takes time.
It's a whirlwind.
It's a whirlwind. Key code word for the day. But it's something we're learning about and figuring out. Thank you all for listening again. I know this is kind of just an information dump as far as podcast goes. As far as our podcasts go, it's a very niche, thing we're targeting here by only talking about ourselves and our work. But it's also kind of a low-hanging fruit in the sense that it's what we know the most about.
We're gonna pick it. We ain't gonna just let it fall off the vine.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want it rotten food off the ground,
No, you don't want that.
But we do.
Then the animals could eat it.
Exactly, and then they're gonna get sick. We are, I think, gonna do another episode here pretty soon. We're going to talk about branching out, hopefully with Paul, and we can talk about in-depth song by song with all three of us, and it won't just be me rambling the whole time.
That would be really nice.
Yeah, I think everybody could use a break from me rambling.
Myself included. Just kidding, buddy.
Yeah, myself included, man. Dude, I'm always looking for a break from this guy.
Well, after the show, we'll get to go to sleep.
One of us will.
Which one?
But,
play rock, paper, scissors.
we have one pillow. Next one, we're going to talk about branching out a little bit. And then I think we're just done. We have nothing else to talk about as far as ourselves.
Canceled?
No. Then, you know what?
No, we're going to think of stuff, guys.
No, guys. This is the long-term ideas. The hope here is now that we recorded a bunch of material, we mastered a bunch. We've had a lot of stuff on our computer just kind of gumming up the works. I don't know if you guys know about computers, but my works are gummed up. And,
technically,
I gotta erase some stuff and free up some space so that we can get number one, the River Street sessions going again. I have a laundry list now of people that I'm dying to get in here.
Yeah.
And get those going, and I would love to supplement those with some podcasts.
Yeah.
Get some buddies in here talking about music, talking about stuff. We're open to ideas. If you guys got ideas for what we should talk about, what do you want to hear? What do you want to see? Let us know.
Yep. Put it in the comments.
We'll take it into consideration. Just like everything we do, we consider it.
Sometimes.
Consider it done and walk away. With that, thank you all for listening to the season 2, episode 1. I hope everything turns out well here. I'm not sure. Like I said, it's been a while. Got to get back in the saddle. So we'll see. We did have one hiccup. We'll see what happened.
It wasn't a bad hiccup.
See what happened.
We do got a nice long cast here, though. Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of material.
A lot of material for y'all to listen to. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Have yourself a wonderful weekend, a good time. That's the old Pine way.
That's the old Pine way.